Welcome to this edition of Diligence Inside Europe's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter, and I'll be your host for today's show. Today we're going to talk about how boards can evaluate their governance, risk, and compliance programs. And joining me as an expert in this field, Maria Dolores Pescador, who's a board member with Admiral Europe, and Vidacaixa Seguros.
Exactly.
So, Maria, welcome.
Thank you. Pleased to be here.
So, you've spent a lot of time in this space working with boards and managements, evaluating their programs and making suggestions in all these three areas: governance, risk, and compliance. So, you're the perfect person to ask. I want to take each of these separately, and I'd like you to offer sort of three key steps that will help directors get their arms around each of these areas, okay?
Perfect.
So let's start with governance. So what would your three key steps be?
Well, first of all, I would like to mention that I come from the financial sector. I worked during the turmoil of the financial crisis for a multinational bank, which gave me a master lesson of what can be right and what can be wrong at the board levels now. So in terms of governance, what I have seen is that sometimes people are very reluctant to ask for more information to understand what's going on, what are the topics to be discussed. So the first step will be that, be sure that you are asking for the information that you need or the training that you may also require. The second point that has been highlighted by the supervisors as one of the things that you must be very careful on are trying to avoid the group thinking. Many times you are tempted to follow what the chairman or CEO's opinion is, or a leader within the group, And I think that we should be very authentic, we should provide our insight to the board. And this means that we must be prudent, but at the same time, as I said, authentic. We must be constructive but challenging. And on top of that, being a little bit disruptive. I think that we should be looking out of the box. Sometimes what I have seen is that boards are very, very conservative. And this is not what the companies are commonly looking for. It's because the third step will be to keep an eye on creating value. I think that many times we forget that we are there as board members to create value for the main stakeholders, for the company, for the shareholders, for the employees, for the clients, and also for the society. So keeping that aim of creating value and not just being the nightmare of the executives, because sometimes we are raising so many questions, and you have to think about which is the purpose of that. It's not the main goal of that process has to be how am I going to deliver, how I'm creating value within this organization.
Yeah, this is probably a good time for us to interject that we aren't saying that one size fits all, meaning that every company is unique and they may do things a different way, but the steps that you're taking are really at 30,000 feet, and you should adapt these steps to your own company. But we do recognize that every company is unique and might operate and get to these points in a different way. So that was governance. Now we're going to take a look at risk.
Risk. Well, I think that in the last 5 or 8 years, many boards are truly aware of the need of following the risk map, and it's true that we have seen tremendous progress on that. But at the end of the day, the board can follow just 10 or 20 big risks, And this doesn't mean that the whole organization is living or is making the decisions based on the risks. So I think that the main goal in this part is to spread the culture of risk, to be sure that every decision it has a certain risk and it has to be analyzed, and all the decisions have to be made based on this risk assessment from my point of view. And for doing that, the only way that you can do it, and as a board member you can be sure that this is being done, is through technology. I think that now we have wonderful GRC solutions to do that, to be sure that at every level within the organization the roles and responsibilities are very clear, that the decisions are made at the proper level, that the processes are followed, and there are the KPIs at any unit, no matter how big the organization is. No? Then, you, as a board member, you can sleep on it. I mean, you can be sure that this is not just a PowerPoint for the board. No, it's not something that someone is preparing. It's something real and something that is being embedded within the organization. For me, this will be the main message on that.
Yeah. So I think that it's important to mention that risk has turned into a bad word, okay? And it's not. It's part of every business. The phrase, you know, risk rewards is exactly that. To get rewards, you have to take some risks. The secret is taking calculated risks and protecting the value, which we talked about in the governance.
Exactly, and even on that, the risk is going to continue being there. I mean, I have seen some boards saying that there is tolerance zero for the risk, and this is ridiculous. I mean, in this case, the only way that you are going to avoid fully % the risk is closing the business. Right. I mean, there is no other way. So you must decide which is going to be the level, the tolerance, the risk appetite, knowing that this is where you can make the difference.
Yeah. So our final one that we want to talk about is probably the least enjoyed by board members, but is still important, and that's compliance.
Of course, and this is one of my favorite topics, I must say, no? But coming from business, not from just a legal point of view, I think that compliance is changing so rapidly, no? That at the beginning it was just a requirement by the law and complying the law, and now compliance is moving more towards a position where we are talking also about conduct. And we are talking about culture, because at the end of the day, everything is under the same path, let's say. No? So I think that the board has to be sure that the compliance department or areas have enough resources and enough authority. Sometimes when I visit a company, just looking at the structure where the compliance is, who reports to, you can know if the board is giving enough importance, I mean, and has enough information from what's going on within the company. No? I think that this is one of the main steps, no? To be sure that the compliance department has enough resources, enough skills, and enough authority. And also, I think that compliance, as I said, is a business matter. This is why I'm so passionate about that. No, I think that compliance has to be part of the process of making decisions, but looking for the opportunities, because they are there as well. And just putting the client in the center, which is something that we have been talking for several years, but living in this way is a different way. I mean, when you put the client and you look all the processes from the client's point of view, from their eyes, you are being compliant and you are making the difference, really, because not all the competitors are acting in this way. So I think that compliance can be of a huge opportunity for the companies to increase even the revenues doing the right things, which is something that everybody feels very well about as well, no?
Well, it's great advice, and particularly in the compliance, which again, many directors want to get to the strategy and get to that, but just like governance and risk, it's a very important part of the puzzle, and as you said, very important to the business model as well. So, Maria Dolores, I want to thank you for taking the time and offering your advice. And that will conclude this edition of Inside Europe's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next time when we take another look at a critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.